Are you ready for the olive harvest? Today we're making a checklist, a shopping list of everything you need. Hello farmers, hope you're all well. Today we're harvesting at Marco's. Tomorrow we'll go to my olive grove to pick my olives. What are we doing today? Let's go do a checklist, a shopping list. What do we need to go pick olives? We will look at two methods, one more mechanized, more advanced of course, the other the traditional manual method still used by many, including myself. So let's make a nice shopping list. At the end of the video, we'll also talk about 4 things you should never do. That way at least you'll know them so you'll be ready to harvest your olives. So we're in the harvesting phase. Let's make a little guide to get ready for the harvest. This harvest is highly mechanized since your company operates on 100 hectares. Maybe we can cover both approaches, both the mechanized one and let's say the more manual one, which is the one we also do on my land.
This is easily the most mechanized harvest. That is a tractor with a comb in front which starts the process, roughly shakes the tree with its arm, and then the harvesters follow up to finish the job. This is an extremely fast method because with the tractor, I harvest about 70%. The guys finish the remaining 30% of the olives. Okay, I remove the upper part, making the work lighter. The nets are 100 meters long, which are then collected with the tractor using the net roller and immediately defoliated. So it's a very mechanized work site that with 7 or 8 people guarantees with typical daily production of 30-40 quintals.
So I'll show you how everything is managed in practice. It starts with a tractor with this platform on top. Here's Marco on top controlling it. You see there's a person in front. Basically it looks like a mini excavator with a large shaker installed on top of this arm. So first step, this is where the bulk falls. We generally do this work on all fairly flat surfaces, but you still need to go over it once because this is a plant that's already been harvested. As you can see, pretty much almost everything. But a little bit is still left attached, so that's why we do a second pass. Using the classic shakers, but it's a more delicate task. Second tractor deployed. It's used for what? To gather the net and to group things together as much as possible. The olives, which in this case are still picked by hand, are transferred into the crate and then go through the defoliator. So the crate is placed in here, and here we have our pal. And it's placed in this fan that removes the leaves and leaves the olives inside this bin, which is then taken and emptied. There are still manual steps, but you understand that the work is much, much easier. We are able to use these machines on plantations with fairly wide spacing, which allows for mechanization. They are generally modern. I mean, compared to the more traditional ones where olive trees were planted a bit randomly and especially not on very steep slopes or generally, there too, we should see what the terraces are like. But in conditions like these, we can work less strenuously, more productively and faster, but always making sure to respect our plants. It should also be noted that there are other tools we can use today, especially those attached to tractors. If you're interested, just write it down here and I'll show them to you. Maybe in the next videos we'll talk a bit about the pros and cons. We work very fast and generally we work much more comfortably. The work is much less tiring. We respect the plant. We increase the harvest in a certain number of hours. So I would say there are excellent benefits. On the downside, let's say this type of machine has the disadvantage that it requires 2 people. Anyway, 1 person drives and 1 stays behind. So the person, let's say, who goes to harvest, or rather to make the fruit fall. The olive harvester isn't fully autonomous since it's not self-propelled. Or in any case, the platform is not autonomous, although it's also true that an autonomous platform could work fine. If we have land that is very, very flat, or if we have land that, as you can see, is slightly sloping, it's always better in these cases to have 2 people, and in any case to have the stability of a fairly large tractor in front.
Obviously, that's in a more hilly area, not like yours, clearly. You can absolutely do the harvesting with the olive shakers and nets.
What do we need? A shopping list, maybe just to give a few
So nets then,
But those made just for harvesting olives.
for harvesting olives, this one we're on right now.
Look, I'm going to pull one up in the meantime.
It's the absolute best. It's called a Pulleys type net because it has a thick weave and above all a heavy weight. So this one,
Just so we're clear, you can't poke through this one. I mean, just look.
with hand harvesting, this net can last a lifetime up to 20 years. We, with the tractors passing over, change it once every 10 years.
With intensive use,
With intensive use,
the main thing is you have to chop a lot, as I usually do, but very, very well. Because if you have a bit of bramble, if you have some little sticks, they get stuck, and it's the worst.
obviously they can't digest brambles.
Well, I already messed up then, so we need the nets.
Size of the nets, there are different types and different options. The net may be square 8 by 8, 10 by 10, which is cut and wraps around the single plant,
So, okay.
or the long nets, so like rectangles, 5 meters by 8, 10, 15, 20, as long as you want.
We also choose the length of the net depending on how many people we are.
Exactly, because the square net is easier to handle even by just one person. For a 20-meter net, you may need 2 or 3 people. So if you're in a small group of 4 or 5 people, it's better to use a longer net because it will cover 4 or 5 trees. And in the meantime, you start picking.
Got it. Once the nets have been gathered, the nets, as you can see, aren't dragged by hand, but are taken, attached, pulled, because we always use the tractor to help bring them in. As you saw, there's no longer a container in the back because it's already been unloaded, so our bin is already full. As you can see, now they're untying the nets. They're going to reattach them and spread them out again, so we start with the nets already spread out, like in this case. After that, they are opened in an orderly way. Keep in mind that it's a job. That's really much less tiring compared to doing everything by hand. You see, the job is very simple. Basically, there are these hooks here. They get hooked. It's basically tightened a little. Then the roller starts, which is a hydraulic roller connected to the outlets, and it starts rolling. That's it. So the machine does a job that is no longer done by hand, which was a hassle. I'll go ahead so I can show you. What's their goal? The machine? Anyway, keep collecting. They bring all the olives more or less toward the center, and then with some crates, see, they remove the bigger branches, and then with the crates, they transfer them behind the leaf remover. But you see, it's a job. That, gentlemen, is really much faster. You see, now they transfer them into the crates. As you can see, there's still a good presence of Ramaglia. These need to be defoliated. You can't take them to the mill like this. I'll show you what's happening in the meantime. See, it's separated. There's a big fan under there. Olives fall due to weight. Leaves are blown away. If you look, this is the result. See, they're practically clean. Anyway, at the mill they get defoliated a bit more, but this is the right way to bring olives to the mill. Look, many mills won't even take them if you don't at least remove some of the leaves. We have our nets that we lay on the ground. That's right. First you spread out the nets. Now we get to the shakers. So what's the difference between a shaker and a beater?
No, actually it's called a beater, okay? The shaker is the classic one with the clamp that grabs the trunk.
Ah, okay. So before.
When I heard you say shaker, oh my, oh my.
No, okay, I get it. They're not exact synonyms.
The abbacchiatore, here a whole world opens up because we start with the pneumatic abbacchiatore, like the ones I have, so a compressor attached to the tractor or with an engine that generates air, and that makes it run. These olive shakers, in recent years, we've moved from this type of shaker to electric shakers, so with a generator, or the car battery and the electric shaker, the latest backpack models with lithium battery and shaker, among other features. The same one that later, during the year, you can use maybe for the pruning shears, a chainsaw. What are the advantages of one over the other? The air-powered shakers definitely have remarkable performance, but they only work well in the sun because when the season is well advanced in November, and in our climate, November starts to get a bit cold, there are fogs, your head freezes because the compressed air freezes, and they have a hard time working properly. Whereas electric or battery-powered olive harvesters don't have these problems. They might have a slightly shorter operating time because obviously we keep going until we get tired. The battery-powered olive harvester, a good model, lasts 7 or 8 hours, and after that it's still quite a feat. Let's say it's a different course. It's a different course. They're olive harvesters, so-called fragile, but not truly. You just need to handle them a bit more carefully because they have some very thin stems. The rods may be made of carbon for weight reasons. So you need to be a bit more careful compared to the air-powered ones, which are much more...
A word about this. We've put down the nets. We've taken our olives from the tree. Do we put them in crates?
Absolutely. Collecting them in crates is best, especially if they have holes on the sides so that air can circulate. Ideally, it would be best to at least remove the larger branches.
I do it with a blower, so we don't necessarily have to use a brush cutter.
We do gardens and use the blower, so we don't need electric wheelbarrows or other equipment. You just use your blower. That's it. You blow, because now all the mills are equipped with leaf removers and so on.
Even if you bring them too dirty, someone will tell you, I know from experience, not me, but the one who brought them.
But then it doesn't seem like it. Keep in mind, in a crate with leaves and branches weighing 18 kilos, 2 or 3 kilos are just leaves. So even the oil yield might be a bit off, and then we end up paying for the leaves too.
So maybe it's about the crates. The real issue isn't so much the crate or the bins, but the transportation. I mean, if someone has a small car, it works. If someone has a van, it works too.
Obviously, if you have a car or a small car like that, the crates make sense. If you have a van or a pickup, you can also handle it with large bins.
With large bins?
With bins, which hold about 280 kilos.
How long do the olives stay in the basket?
As little as possible. Ideally, the olives should be delivered to the mill immediately.
So before we harvest, we need to book the right mill.
Today, everything requires a reservation, so with
Specific time slots.
the olive mill. Now, they're organized. They give you more or less the time slot, or at least the days when you can come, so you harvest based on that. Because the less time passes, the higher the quality of the oil we get.
Great. Maybe we'll also make a detailed video with the guide for choosing the oil mill, but even there, it opens up a bit.
Here's the observation I didn't mention earlier. Any type of olive harvester, however, does cause some damage to the olives, because anyway, the more you beat them while they're still, the more these hits oxidize the olive paste.
Now I know we always have our friends from Apulia who are more used to thinking about the plains. Marco manages almost 100 hectares of olive groves, all in these conditions, all terraced, so the work being made easier with machines helps him, first of all, to harvest as quickly as possible, so to have a high quality product. The second result is to ensure less strenuous work for his workers. The third result is to further reduce fatigue and human error, helping to prevent injuries. Now let's talk about the 3 things not to do. Well, I've seen a few, maybe you'll add 2 more later. Pruning olives, that is, pruning the olive tree to harvest the olives.
Not to do?
Never do it. That's right, never.
No, never to do, because October is still quite warm. The plants are, in jargon, in sap, which means they're still growing, still producing leaves. If we cut them, we stimulate them to grow again.
We're entering winter, and even slightly below zero can cause frost and cold damage to the leaves.
First mistake. The second, according to grandfather's legends, was this: storing the olives in an attic because it was believed to increase the yield.
Exactly. This was more than a legend. It was reality then.
It existed.
Well, I saw it. Olives stored in the attic for 15 days, harvested in December and taken to the mills, which is total mold, basically.
I mean, the yield increases.
So there, the yield increases, but only because the olive gets dehydrated. Okay, so today the oil formation, the process of oil production, is almost complete. Let's say there might be another 5 or 10 days left, and that's it. It won't produce any more oil. Any difference in yield is only due to the amount of water in the olive. It's clear that if I bring in olives that are very full of water, I'll get a low yield. If I keep these olives here, if I leave them here in the sun for 10 days, they dehydrate. Obviously, the weight drops and the yield increases.
So the rule of Pasito applies to wine.
The rule of pasito applies to wine, but absolutely not to olives.
Third thing, olives harvested when wet, that is fully more
Damage to the plants than to the olives themselves because we completely strip the leaves. The harvesters don't work well, they grate them, and we end up with twice as many leaves.
One last thing that comes to mind, olive knot disease. If I have the plants, we know that if we have olive knot, we can only limit it. But by now, let's say it's part of the plant.
It's endemic since olive knot is a bacterial tumor that remains in the plant.
How should we behave? Because we're still touching it quite a lot, right?
As a general rule, after harvesting, immediately as soon as possible, use a disinfectant treatment. So with copper, in this case, copper is better because then we slow down the plant's lymphatic flow. So we use Bordeaux mixture.
Maybe we don't need that much in this case, though. I've seen that it's better this way. We cover it since many people understandably lack a license, even just to get the copper or the small door. It's right to give an alternative anyway. So we did a general review to get ready for the harvest. Now we're going to release 2 more videos. One dedicated to understanding when the olives are ready, when to harvest, what yield you can expect if you pick at certain times. And a final video, the guide for the oil mill, how to choose the mill, where to go, and a series of other little tricks. So Marco, we'll keep working because today we're working here with you, but tomorrow we'll be harvesting at my place. So
Exactly. So
we have to behave ourselves.
let's keep working.
Let's keep working. Have a good harvest. See you next video. Bye all.
Bye.